Okay, sir. Within 2 minutes, our webinar room is full. Now, shall we start with our session, sir? Good afternoon, everyone. I heartily welcome all of you in the historical and pioneering Langlitz online lecture series day 24. At the outset, we, the team of Langlit, need to thank all the participants who have joined with us by logging Zoom app frequently, and those who, since I think 20th of April, and those who are watching, enjoying, and learning with us live on Facebook and YouTube channel Langlitz Educators. Thank you very much for your love, words of appreciations, blessings, and academic support. We have been receiving overwhelming response from all over India and abroad. Almost half century nationally and internationally acclaimed academicians have delivered their talks on various aspects of language, literature, higher education, and e-content development for last 25 days. In addition to that, it's not the end of lecture series. It's just a new beginning. We will arrange such a lecture series every now and then. With your unconditional academic support, quest for knowledge, and with your support, we are inviting renowned academicians, uh, probably from 21st May. Our team is working on it. There are certain instructions for the participants. Many participants are requesting for certificates. To get eligible for certificates, participants need to do certain things. First, send their Zoom participation screenshot, and otherwise YouTube channel Langlitz Educators subscription screenshot where you have watched all these videos. So I send all these things to the email ID elanglitmotivators@gmail.com. Our designer is working on the certificate. Very soon you will receive Google Form link. You need to fill that Google Form. We are working on the certificates manually. So it takes certain charges around 150 rupees per article per certificate for entire 25 days uh, certificates, if you say. So you need to approach me through mail or through mobile after 16th May for the certification. You can also visit our Langlitz website www.langlit.org. Kindly keep in touch. Don't forget to subscribe the channel and like and comments on the channel so that you will get further notification about the speakers. Next series of Langlitz lecture series will start from 21st May. So let's share and grow together. Friends, today we have with us a well-known and internationally acclaimed second language writing, written discourse analysis, ESP and ELF expert, Dr. Supong, popularly known as Jun Tang. He is an associate professor in applied linguistics, Language Institute of Thammasat University, Thailand, and director, president of Thailand TESOL Association. He has delivered keynote speech in various international conferences. He has visited more than 20 countries as the keynote speaker. He has conducted more than 10 international conferences on behalf of Thammasat University and TESOL. Without further delay, it's my honor and proud privilege to invite Dr. Supong to deliver his talk on writing a research article in humanities and social sciences. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Dr. Prashant Moti, for inviting me, right, to give a talk this afternoon. And I would like to say good afternoon to all the scholars, right, our colleagues, from different parts of the world, right? And I hope everyone is staying well, right? We are trying to keep well as well, in Thailand. Okay, so I'm going to share my slides. You see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Today I'm going to share with you, okay, some ideas about writing a research article in humanities and social science using a genre-based approach, okay? And then maybe the examples I'm going to show you today are mainly concerned with educational studies, okay, or language studies. So when we talk about genre approach, okay, we look at, how we can produce text. Okay, so, here a research article is a genre, and so it's a kind of text. So that depends on identifying ways, okay, in which a particular text is similar to or reminiscent of other text circulating in a culture. So that means, when we want to write a research article, okay, we need to know what it looks like. And so if a text is not easily attributed to a genre, it can be a problematic text, right? Because it will not be understood or you will not be accepted, by the discourse community of the text. And so when we habitualize our joint negotiation of communicative tasks, we establish a series of steps and stages. Okay, so that means, we are supposed to follow certain stages or steps, or in terms of, the schematic structure of a genre is what we call moves. Okay, so today I'm going to walk you through, okay, different moves, okay, for a research article. So according to Martin, 1985, right, schematic structure represents the positive contribution genre makes to a text. So it's a way of getting from A to B in the way a given culture accomplishes whatever the genre in question in functioning to do in that culture. So again, I just would like to emphasize that, okay, so that, we can produce a successful or effective research article, okay, we need to know the schematic structure, okay, of the research article, particularly, the structure of the research article that will be accepted well, okay, for publication in maybe in index, in Scopus index journals. So here, right, there are two parts I would like to mention to you, okay, constituency and labeling. Okay, so these are important concepts for understanding how genres are structured. So the first one is constituency. What is that? So this is something to do with identifying the parts, or what we call constituents, okay, that make up or constitute the whole. Okay, so these are the elements, okay, that we need, okay, to constitute a research article. And so at its simplest, we can say that, this involves defining something like the beginning, the middle, and the end. And the other concept is functional labeling. Okay, so to divide a text into its constituents, it's necessary to establish the basis on which different parts of a text constitute different stages. So there are certain criteria that we need to follow. So that means, we need to divide the genre into different stages according to the function of different constituents. So our genres, have a beginning, middle, and end, as you know. Okay, so to find more useful labels, we should ask, what exactly is being done at the beginning, or then in the middle, and then at the end of the text. Okay, so what exactly is being done in the body of one genre that is different from the body of another. Okay, so that means we need to become familiar, with the research articles, so we know how to write a good one. And we need to be aware of, or we need to be familiar with, the realization or rhetorical patterns, when we produce a research article. So if genres are different ways of using language, then we should find that the speakers or writers, make different lexicogrammatical choices according to the different purposes they want to achieve. So then, realization patterns or rhetorical patterns, will differ across genres. And if each genre is made up of a number of different functionally related stages, then the different elements of schematic structure will reveal different lexicogrammatical choices. So then realization patterns will differ also, across schematic stages. And so that means, each stage of schematic structure is associated clearly with a number of grammatical and lexical features. So that means, when you write a text or here, right, when you want to write a research article, you need to know, okay, we need to know a number of grammatical and lexical structures necessary for creating or crafting a research article. Okay, so by specifying, okay, in as much detail as possible the grammatical patterns of each part of a text, we can determine both how many stages we need to recognize and where to place the boundaries between stages. Okay, so there are stages that we need to follow, and so we need to be aware of the boundaries. So now let's come to, the schematic structure of a research article. Maybe you are all familiar with this, okay? So normally a research article starts with an abstract, and then the introduction follows. After that, we need to do some literature review. Then, we describe the research method of the study. Then we discuss the results. And, we write something in the discussion part, which is the most challenging part to me. And finally, the conclusion. So let's start, with the first constituent or the first element, the first part, of a research article. Okay, so functions. What are the functions of an abstract? Okay, so an abstract, it can be used as a planning tool written before the paper. Okay, so we can write a draft of an abstract. Okay, just to follow as a plan. Okay, but of course, we're going to finalize it after we finish our paper. And we could use an abstract, as a synopsis for a research article, and also as a preview preceding a paper in a journal, and then as an application for a place at a conference. If you want to join a conference, you need to submit, okay, your abstract, okay, to apply. And finally, an abstract, can be used as a stand-in, okay, for a full paper, so that when a reader reads, your abstract, they know, okay, what your paper is mainly about. So we're going to look at some samples, some a sample abstract. So the first move of an abstract usually, okay, starts, with orientation, which means locating the research study within its field or wider context. For example, here, this is from a study on using computers, right, in education. So, we start with something general, a general statement like computers are now a fact of primary school life. And then we can move on to the second move, okay, which we call rationale, creating a niche for the research. So for example, then we can continue with, but there is a need for research on how to use them effectively. So this is something general, okay, that we can start off with. Then we can go on to move 3, okay, presenting the aim, right, or purpose of the research. Okay, for example, we say this paper investigate what, okay, if you have hypotheses, how many hypotheses are there? What are they? You can briefly describe them here. And then move 4, you can talk about the methods, right, which means outlining the research methodology or theoretical framework, okay? This is an example, okay? So you can say, what to do with the hypothesis. So what do the hypothesis explore, okay? And so if you have the intervention program, if it's like, an experimental study, you can describe it briefly here in the method section. And move 5 in an abstract, would be findings. Okay, so you just outline the research findings in this section. For example, you say evaluation shows some marked improvement in the quality of children's talk at the computer and also in off-computer tasks designed to provide a measure of group reasoning. Okay, and then you can also say what the evaluation reveals. Then move 6, okay, interpretation of the findings. So you give the general significance of the research findings here. So for example, okay, you can say what the results are evidence of. And this is another example from a recent article, okay, from the second language. writing journal. Okay, this is Scopus Index Journal Q1. Okay, so you can see that this can be an alternative abstract style. Okay, so you can see that this abstract starts immediately, with the purpose of the paper. Like this paper shows, okay, what is going to be done, right? And then the second part in the abstract here describe the method, and the last part, okay, talks briefly about the results, and the results here are from the pre-test and post-test scores. So now we come to the introduction. Okay, the first part of the research article. All right, this is the body. The first part, of course, is abstract, but then the first part, in the body of the research article is the introduction. Okay. So usually the introduction, should lead the reader from the general subject area to a particular field of research. Okay, so from general to specific, and then it should establish the context and significance of the research. And it summarizes current understanding and background information about a topic. And it states the purpose of the work in the form of a research problem supported by a hypothesis or a set of questions. And it also highlights the potential outcomes your study can review. So make sure that the introduction is general enough, okay, to cover the main points. And it should also lead to, okay, the more specific subject, right, in the research that you have conducted. But make sure that the introduction that you are writing is not too broad or too general. So usually the opening paragraphs of your paper will provide your readers with, first, their initial impressions about the logic of your argument, your writing style, the overall quality of your research, the validity of your findings and conclusions. So everything should be revealed here quite clearly. Otherwise, your reader will just lose interest, or they might doubt, okay, the quality of your study. So what you should not do, what we should not do is avoid, okay, the introduction which is vague or disorganized or error-filled. And then you should make sure that your introduction, right, is a concise, engaging, and well-written one. Okay, so that your readers can think highly of your analytical skills. They can see that you have a nice writing style, and your research approach is valid and reliable. This is an example. Okay, so move one for introduction is establishing a territory. So if John Swell, right? Actually, Professor John Swell is the big name, and also he's the father of genre analysis, and he has proposed these moves, okay, in his study in his study of moves or genre analysis. So step one, claiming significance, right? So here we should show that the general research area is important, central, interesting, or relevant. This is an example. Okay, so you can start with the general idea about computers, but then when you claim the significance, right, you can start with the expression like however. You see, however, despite the growing expectation that computers will be available in classrooms, there remain considerable uncertainty and debate over how best to use them. And then the second step here, would be to review the literature. But here, this is not the literature review section. So you just introduce and review, okay, the major items, from previous research in the area. But this is just part of the introduction. Okay, so you can see the example here. Like you can refer to a major study, okay, in the previous research, and then you try to point out, okay, the main things here. But we have to make sure that when you do literature review, either here or later, okay, make sure that it's critical enough. So it's not just actually it's not just reporting, okay, what previous researchers have done. Okay, but maybe you have to also evaluate, like, in the middle of this example, where you see the writer say, Crook's review of the evidence on the impact of computers in school education suggests that computers are often used in a way decoupled from the mainstream of classroom life, something like this. This is a critical part, of this literature review. Then in move two, you can establish a niche, or you just provide a rationale. So here you can justify the research topic, where you will indicate a gap, raise question, extend knowledge. So for example, right? So you can, again, right, refer back, to the earlier part. So you say these arguments were made by Crook 2004, but this paper also argues that, and then you move on. This is how you can justify the research topic. And at the same time, you can indicate a gap. And then step 2, okay, you can justify the research paradigm. And you can also defend the choice of approach or theoretical framework. So you can say what the paper does, okay, so that you can justify the choice or the approach of your framework in your study. Like this paper joins a debate about how best to integrate the use of computers into classroom education. So what approach is used, right? A sociocultural approach is adopted based on the claim that, and then you explain in detail. Move 3 for the introduction is occupying the niche, okay? So for the first step of move 3, right, you can talk about the aims and scope of current research. So here you can outline the purposes, the methodology, and you can state the parameters of your study, okay? So for example, right, you can say how your study, okay, develops, what your study develops, okay? Like here, this study develops an educational strategy for the use of more directive tutorial software, which can be incorporated by teachers into curriculum-based classroom activities. And so this strategy is based upon what concept? And this is the following part, okay? And this is also a very important part because, in the introduction, you should also state your research questions, okay? So these are examples of research questions, you can pose, all right, into introduction. You can use the yes, no question like this. Okay, it depends on the research design of your study, all right? So here, the researcher or the writer start, with can, right? Can. All right, this is possible, okay? Or from another example, okay? So you can maybe first, talk about maybe the funding of your research project, and then you can talk briefly about the main purpose, okay, of your study again, and then you can say what research question, okay, your study sought to address. So here, the question are not yes, no question. You can use how. These are like, usually question for experimental studies. So how and to what extent? So in this example, right, there are four questions. And then step 2, following this, we should provide a definition. So you need to define the key terms in this section. Okay, for example, if you need to clarify the term exploratory talk, what does that mean, right? So you just define it here as necessary. In step 3, you just, sorry, in step 3, you just talk about the outline, indicating the structure of the research article. Okay, so for example, you can say what the first part of the paper does, okay, then the second part and so on. So now, after you finish the first part, the introduction, so you can start with the literature review. This is another challenging section, in a research article. So usually a lit review surveys textbooks, scholarly articles, and any other sources relevant to a particular issue. And it presents an area of research or theory. And it provides a description, summary, and critical evaluation of these works in relation to the research problem being investigated. So you can see the words in red. This is very important. When you write a literature review, you don't just report or summarize, okay, what people said, in textbook, or what researchers said, in previous studies, okay, but you need to do the critical evaluation of the concepts, theories in the textbooks, right, related to your field of study, and also you need to do the critical evaluation of the previous studies. So usually literature reviews are designed to provide an overview of sources you have explored while researching a particular topic. and demonstrate to your readers how your research fits within a larger field of study. So here you can make connection, okay, make connection, between the general concepts, okay, in your discipline, in the field of your study, with what you are doing in particular in your study. So a literature review may consist of simply a summary of key sources, but usually in social sciences or in humanities, literature review usually has an organizational pattern and combines both summary and synthesis, okay, within specific conceptual categories. Okay, so you need to summarize the major concepts, and also you have to synthesize all the concepts that you incorporate, okay, in your studies. So that would be the conceptual framework, right? The main theoretical framework that you employed, okay, in your study. And so the purposes of literature review are first, to place each work in the context of its contribution to understanding the research problem being studied, okay? So make sure that, you lead your reader, to the understanding of the context of your study. Then it should review any gaps that exist in the literature. So what is the research gap in your study? You should reveal it here. And then you should also locate your own research within the context of existing literature. This is very important. Okay, so you, again, need to say, right, how your research, okay, can be located, can be found, right, in the context of the literature, in the current literature, in your field of study. So what is the structure of a lit review? So move one, okay, you should provide an overview of the subject, the issue or theory under consideration. And then you move on to the next part, right, where you divide the works into themes categories. And then you should explain how each work is similar to or how it differs from the others. And finally here, you just write the conclusions on which pieces are best considered in their arguments, are most convincing of their opinions, and make the greatest contribution to the understanding and developing of their area of research. So the last move here, move number 4 here, provides the critical evaluation, okay, of the literature review that you are crafting. And after you finish the literature review, then you can move on to the methodology. So in the methodology, you need to introduce the overall methodological approach for investigating your research problem. And so you just have to answer the questions about the research design here. So is your study qualitative, or is it quantitative, or is it a mixed method design? Okay, you're going to take any special approach here. Okay, what kind of research is that? Is it action research? Okay, or is it a case study? Is it an experimental study? And so you need to describe the specific methods of data collection you're going to use, such as survey or experimental research. Or, if you're analyzing existing data, such as a data set, okay, or archival documents, maybe you can describe how it was originally created or gathered and by whom. In the methodology, you also need to explain how you analyze your results. So maybe you need to answer the questions like, did you use any statistical analysis? Okay, if it's a quantitative study. Did you use specific theoretical perspectives to help you analyze the text or explain observed behaviors? Okay, so what is your approach, to the analysis of your findings? And it's here also, where you describe how you obtain an accurate assessment of relationships, patterns, trend distributions, and possible contradictions found in the data. So you need to analyze the data in detail. Okay, so you can see the patterns, you can see the relationships among all the variables. And also, okay, you need to provide background and a rationale for the methodologies that are unfamiliar for your readers, if there are any. Okay, and also provide a justification for subject selection. This is the selection of participants and the sampling procedure. So very often in the social sciences or humanities, right, research problems and then methods for investigating them require more explanation or rationale than widely accepted rules governing the natural and physical sciences, right? So you have to be clear and concise in our explanation here. And so, when we conduct interviews, for example, so how did we select the sample population? So you have to think about the parameter. And then if you analyze text, which text, okay, did you choose and why? Okay. If you use statistics, why was this set of statistics being used? If other data sources exist, explain why the data you chose is most appropriate to addressing the research problem. So you have to be very thorough and clear, okay, in the methodology. Now look at an example. So move 1, okay, we start with the orientation, which is locating the methods within an overall approach to research. This is an example, right? So you just describe your study in terms of the methodology. You can say the study adopted what approach, okay, which method, okay? And so you can explain a bit about the approach you used, like, this paradigm rejects what, okay? Whereas, it asserts what, okay? And so how many different methods were used in your study? Here you can state, all right, the different methods like quantitative, qualitative, okay? And then for move 2, the rationale. So here you argue for the choice of methods. So you can start, maybe with like using video recordings of group of children talking together while doing shared reasoning test made, blah, blah, blah. 2, all right, the later part, Raven's progressive matrices, when used with individuals, have been shown to correlate closely to educational achievement. So this is how, right, you argue for, you defend for the choice of the method. Then in move 3, you describe, okay? So you provide details on the subjects, data, and procedure. This is an example, okay? So if you want to describe, okay, the details, okay, for the test that you used in your study, right? You can say how the test, was divided. So it was divided up into how many groups, okay? And so what are the information, what are the details about each group? After you finish the methodology section, so now we come to the results section. So mainly in the results section, okay, we need to provide data that are critical to answering the research question. So a good strategy is to always reread the background section of your paper after you have written your results, okay, to ensure that the reader has enough context to understand the results, and later how you interpret the results in the discussion section. So normally the content of the results section includes first an introductory context for understanding the results by restating the research problem underpinning your study. So please keep in mind that we need to refer to each research question all the time, and then provide the results as the answers to the research questions. And then the second move, right, is the summary of your key findings arranged in a logical sequence that generally follows your methodology section. Okay, so you just provide the key findings only. And the step, following move 2 here is to include the non-textual elements like figures, charts, photos, or the visual aids, okay, to illustrate the key findings. And so in this section, right, there should be a systematic description of your results where you highlight for the reader observations that are most relevant to the topic under investigation. Okay, so the results, to be described systematically. And here, usually we use the past tense when we refer to our results. And the length of results section is guided by the amount and types of data to be reported. And so you should focus mainly on the findings that are important and related to addressing the research problem. You should not present or report all the data or the findings. Now we come to the discussion section, which I said, is the most challenging part, because after you present the result, now you have to show what you have discovered, what you have understood, okay, about your study. So in this section, okay, we normally demonstrate our ability as a researcher to do what? First, to think critically about an issue. So now it's a critical thinking section, very important. So here you will develop creative solutions to problems based on a logical synthesis of the findings. And then, we can also formulate a deeper, more profound understanding of the research problem and investigation. So we have to show, okay, what insights, okay, we have gained into the findings, okay, into the study that we conducted. The discussion, right, presents the underlying meaning of your research as well. So you should also note possible implications in other areas of study if possible, and also explore possible improvements that can be made to further develop the concerns of research. So you can describe this in the discussion part as well. And the discussion usually highlights the importance of your study and how it may be able to contribute to and or fill existing gaps in the field. So at the end of your study, there will be some gaps, some more gaps to fill. So you can highlight your the gaps that you have in your study here. And the discussion also engages the reader in thinking critically about issues based upon an evidence-based interpretation of findings. Okay, so now because now you have the findings, all right, and you have presented your findings in the results section. So now, okay, what can we learn? What can we infer? Okay, what inferences, can we draw on the basis of the finding or the data that we have obtained? So it's not easy. What's the organization and structure of the discussion? So normally, we can think of our discussion as an inverted pyramid. So we should organize the discussion from general to specific, linking all your findings to the literature, to theory, to practice. So we don't just summarize, okay, the results again, but we need to make connection, okay, between our findings and the concepts or the theories, okay, in the literature, in the fields, and also how can we make links between the findings to the practice. Use the same key terms, narrative style, verb tense usually present that you use when describing the research problem in your introduction, so that it will be still familiar, okay, to the readers. Okay, if you use different key terms now, they will be confusing. And this section can begin by briefly restating the research problem you were investigating and answer all the research questions underpinning the problem that you posed in the introduction. So here again, okay, you need to discuss, okay, each critical point, okay, in response to each research question that you post in the introduction. And here you should also describe the patterns, principal relationships shown by the major findings and place them in proper perspective. So the sequence of the information here is important. So state the answer first, and then what are the relevant results. And then now you can cite the work of others, okay, that are similar or that are different, that are similar to, or that are different from the findings from your study. So you can refer the reader to the figure or table to help enhance the interpretation of the data. So here you can also use the figure and table to help you illustrate your interpretation. And the order of interpreting each major finding should be in the same order as they were described in your results section, so that it will be coherent, it will be easy to follow, okay, by your readers. So don't forget that, your readers here will be your reviewers. So normally your reviewer, will read your writing very critically. Okay, so make sure that, you write coherently. And this is, one of the main points, okay, that is included, that is usually included, in the criteria, in the review, okay, for any academic journal. So the conclusion, this part should be a well-written part, okay, which provides you with important opportunities to demonstrate to the reader your overall understanding of the research problem. And usually this includes presenting the last word on the issues you raised in your paper. So just as the introduction gives a first impression to your reader, the conclusion offers a chance to leave a lasting impression. So you should highlight key points in your analysis or results, or note important or unexpected implications applied to practice. And then we can summarize our thoughts and convey the larger significance of our study. So the conclusion is an opportunity to succinctly answer the so what question, right? So we can do that, by placing the study within the context of past research about a topic under investigated. And here we should also demonstrate the importance of your ideas. So the conclusion usually offers an opportunity to elaborate on the impact of the finding. And the conclusion should also introduce possible new or expanded ways of thinking about a research problem or research question. So it doesn't mean that, we introduce new information here, okay? And that should be avoided, okay? We should not introduce anything new here. It will not be relevant to your current study, but you should offer new insights and creative approaches for framing or contextualizing the research problem based on the studies of your result. The general rules for a conclusion. Okay, so when we write a conclusion, we should state our conclusions in clear, simple language, state how your findings differ or support those of others and why, but briefly here, right? Not as much in detail as in the discussion. So you have to be very selective. And do not simply reiterate your results or the discussion. Again, this is important. Sometimes we get stuck, and so we just repeat the introduction, we just repeat the results or the discussion. But we need to provide a synthesis of arguments presented in the paper to show how these converge to address the research problem or study objectives. Okay, it's like you go, you move a step forward, okay, to see what you can do next, okay, with your study, how we can apply, okay, the findings from our study. And because this is going to lead to the implications and recommendations of your study. And also we need to indicate, okay, opportunities for future research here. And we can highlight areas for further studies to provide the reader with the evidence that we have an in-depth awareness of the research problem. This is also very important, in-depth awareness. So usually a reviewer, okay, would look for how profound, okay, how in-depth, okay, you understood, okay, your research study, particularly the research question that you have posed. Look at an example. So move one, for discussion and conclusion, okay? Normally we can refer back to the aims of the research, right? So in step 1, we can reiterate the aims, like the research described in this paper confirms the 3 hypotheses set out in the introduction. This is another example, okay? This is also from Second Language Writing Journal, okay? A very recent one. So here you can say, why, right? This study is significant, okay? So this is, how you can start, okay, the discussion and the conclusion here. And then in step 2, you can confirm or disconfirm the hypothesis. So you can say the results indicate that, okay? So it's not just what the results are, but you have to interpret the result and say what the results indicate. And so the statements in this section are normally the analytical statements. Move 2, we show the interpretation in detail. Okay, so in step 1, right, general significance. So you can say something like, however, the results obtained do support the socio-cultural view that, right, and then you give, the relevant information, okay, critically. Then you can explain how the findings, okay, contribute to knowledge. You can also say something like, they also lend support to the argument put forward, somewhere, that, right? And here you can also provide some explanation. Okay, for example, you can say that the finding, right, that children with the lowest initial score on the individual reasoning test improved their score much more significantly after coaching in exploratory talk than high scoring children was unexpected. You can say that the finding was unexpected. This is, what we should say, so that, we can make an analysis, right? This is how we can do the analysis, of the findings. So you can further say that this finding suggests that, okay? So that you can show, or you can demonstrate your ability, to interpret your data successfully and effectively and critically. Move forward, problematizing. So when you discuss, okay, you can talk about the interpretation of the findings. Okay, so you can say, for example, okay, how the score, all right, measure primarily something. For example, here the scores on this test measure primarily the children's ability to do these kinds of tests. Okay, so just show, okay, that the findings, were interpreted clearly and critically with reference, to the theories. And then move 5, right? We can show the implications for practice. So this paper suggests what? Okay, this is the implication. In the recommendation, right, you can also talk about the implication as well, all right? Or you can just provide the recommendations for future study. Another example, okay? So you can say something like, research here is also needed to investigate multimodal perspective extending current applications of the appraisal framework in developing EAL students' verbal comprehension and expression of evaluative meaning in curriculum areas through content and language integrated learning. This is, what the authors or the researchers, okay, recommended towards the end of their paper. So I just would like, to call your attention to the mistakes that, we might make in our manuscripts, which are to be submitted to a journal. So first, the research question is not specified. This is very important. So make sure that we specify our research question clearly and systematically. And so the stated aim of the paper is tautological. That means when you say like the aim of the paper is to describe what we did. So this is tautological, right? It's like circular reasoning. So you just have to state the aim very, very clearly and logically. Or sometimes, when the aim of the paper is so vague, like we explore issues related to X is too vague. So the readers or the reviewers do not know what you really did. The structure of the paper is chaotic. It's like methods are described in the results section. Again, this is something to do with coherence. The manuscript does not follow the journal's instructions for authors. So before, okay, you submit, okay, your manuscript, make sure that you follow the instructions provided by the journal strictly. The paper much exceeds the maximum number of words allowed. Again, right, you need to study the instructions carefully for each journal and do not exceed the maximum number of words. Normally, if you do that, they might return your manuscript immediately. Okay, they might ask you, okay, to reduce the number of words, or otherwise, if they are very popular journals, okay, they would just reject your manuscript immediately. Also, the introduction, right, is an extensive review of the literature. That means, you should not do that. Introduction, should provide the background, okay, provides the rationale, and then you state the problem leading to the research question, okay, in your study, but it should not be an extensive literature review here. And the methods, interventions, treatments, instruments are not described in sufficient detail. This is important, particularly, for an experimental study, so that, readers know, okay, what you really did, and then what you did proved to be valid and reliable. And this is also very useful, for replication, right? Results are reported selectively. percentages without frequencies, p-values without measures of effect. So that means usually, we need to report results, fully, right, and completely. The same results appear both in a table and the text. That means sometimes, we have the results, right, in the table, and we just describe the information in the tables. So that's no use. So we can describe, okay, the results in the text, but then you can make a reference to the table. So the table may provide more information, but then the text, would highlight the information from the table. The detailed tables are provided for results that do not relate to the main research question. So that means, the tables that we provide are sometimes not relevant, okay, to the research question of the study. So make sure that you don't have them. Also, in the introduction and discussion, okay, the key arguments are not backed up by appropriate references. So make sure that you provide references, okay, which are suitable, okay, which are recent, current, and related to your study. So most of all references are out of date or cannot be accessed by most readers. You can have, some older references as long as they are relevant, and if they are like, classical works, okay? And make sure that your references, are accessible to most readers, to all the reviewers, but include recent ones, okay? The discussion does not provide an answer to the research question. So it's like if we discuss the results, but then we do not try to write a discussion so that it is related to the research question, then it will not be good enough because it will not be coherent. The discussion overstates the implications of the results and does not acknowledge the limitations of the study. So we need to show our awareness, okay, of the limitations of our study. So make sure that the discussion does not overstate the implications of the results. That means, the inference that we draw, okay, should be commensurate, with the findings, okay, that we obtain from our study. Do not overstate. And of course, if the paper is written in poor English, our manuscript, will be rejected sometime immediately. Okay, before I finish, I would like to tell you something about the journal, okay, published by the Language Institute of Thammasat University, where I work. So the journal is called Learn Journal. Okay, it's a Scopus Index journal now. And so, you can visit our website. Okay, so you can see the details. All right, so now our journal, Learn, right, is indexed in Scopus, ERIC, okay, and Thai Journal Index, Citation Index, and ASEAN Citation Index. And so, we accept manuscripts, okay, on a wide range of topics, okay. So all the topics, relate to linguistic, applied linguistic, and English language teaching, okay. Literature is also possible. It's a possible topic that we can accept, for publication in our journal. So if you're interested, you can visit our website. Okay, so this is the end of my talk. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, please.
So there are certain questions in Q&A box.
Yes, please. Oh, do we need to?
Okay, I will help you.
Okay, let me go back to.
Most of the comments are really very informative, very thought-provoking session. Words of appreciation from many participants.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. So there is one question.
Okay.
What are the prerequisites for a person to become a good researcher?
prerequisite, right?
Yes, sir.
So maybe first of all, right, you need to read a lot first. You need to familiarize yourself, okay, with the concepts or the theories that you are investigating. Okay, so you have to read through, and then you have to do the critical literature review. So normally, if you want to be a researcher, we don't start, with the methodology. Okay, you see, this is what many PhD students do. Okay, so if we start with the methodology, we may not have enough information, or we may not know sufficiently how to conduct research. So that means, in our field, humanities and social sciences, we need to do a lot of literature review. So we have to review critically the theories, the concepts, the approaches, right? And then think about the research questions first, and then try to keep reading and reading and reading to find the answer. Many people, many novice researchers, okay, we just try, to find some shortcuts, which is not possible. So after thorough literature review and through extensive reading, okay, we will be able to develop our research skill. I mean, of course, not outwardly, but then we can understand what other people have done, okay, with that research. And after that, then you can think about the research question, you can think about the methodology, and then you can start off. I mean, just give it a try and see what it's like. So like if you want to do an experiment, okay, if you want to be an experimental researcher, you have to do experiment, and you have to try it again and again and again, right? And you have to maybe do the pilot test. You have to know all the research process, very, very well. Yes.
Yes, thank you, sir. Can you suggest reference books for research methodology?
Oh, actually, there are many good books on research methodologies, okay, in applied linguistics. Maybe one that I like most, is research methodology, by Professor Creswell, okay, and also another one, by Professor Donye, okay, Sultan Donye, from the University of Nottingham, and also there's one, okay, by Susan Gass. So actually there are several, I mean, there are many different books on research methodologies, but I think, these three books are quite good. There's another one also, on classroom research, if you're interested, in experimental studies or survey studies, with classroom teaching. Okay, that's one, by Professor Noonan and Bailey. Okay.
Sir, what's the title of the Scopus journal that you have mentioned? I think Learn, right?
Oh, Learn,
So,
yes, yeah, LEARN, Learn.
yeah.
But that's an acronym. Okay,
Okay.
that's an acronym. Mm-hmm.
And where we are supposed to send articles? What is that email ID?
All year round, anytime.
Okay.
Anytime, because we are open, to submission at any time. So, and
Is it a quarterly journal?
It's I mean, we publish twice a year. Twice a year. Yeah, that's quite
biannual.
Yes, but biannual, right?
So there is another question, sir. How to frame research objectives?
Frame research objectives, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we need to know, okay, what we are investigating, okay, and what we're investigating is not just from our idea or not just from our imagination, okay. So that means we need to know what actually, when we want to state the objective, we need to know the whole thing about our study. So it's like what question or what problem that you want to respond to, okay, what question you want to address, and then what are the theories, theoretical frameworks, theoretical concepts, okay, which involve, okay, our research, right? And then what are the methodologies that we can employ, okay, to find the answers, okay? And after that, what will be the contribution of the results okay, to our field. So actually, when we state the objective, we need to know almost the whole thing, even though, we do not know what the results are, and we might not know at the beginning, right, what we're going to discuss, all right? But then we need to make sure that we understand, the underpinning assumptions, right? We need to know all about, the approaches and the concepts relating, to the study
Yes.
quite clearly.
Sir, can you please suggest? Sorry. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How is a research question similar to a thesis statement?
Oh, thesis statement.
Oh, yes.
Normally in a research article, okay, we don't use the term thesis statement, right? A thesis statement, maybe usually for essay writing, but then in a research article, okay, we normally refer to the problem statement if you have any problem under investigation, or we can also normally we use the research questions. Okay, research questions are the research problems are the same thing, and usually the research question mirror, okay, the objectives of our study. So why do we need to pose the research questions? Because we need to we want to solve the problems. All right, so usually we do research because we have some problems in mind, and so we just want to find some solutions, okay, certain solutions to the problems. So that means we need to think about the problems, and then we just have to pose the questions so that we can answer to that. And I think it's also it also helpful because then when you write the result section, when you write the discussion section, you have something to refer to. All right, so this statement maybe in a research article would be like the main idea statement that you want to present, okay, maybe in the introduction. But then the research question are the question you have to answer from the methods that you use, right, in your study. And then the findings that you obtain, will answer those questions, and they will be used, as a guideline for your writing as well.
Sir, how can we review article?
Oh, review an article?
Yes.
When you select an article, you mean review an article as a reviewer or as a researcher?
I don't know. Okay. As a editor.
As an editor, right? Okay, like from my experience, so when I receive the manuscript, okay, I will look at the criteria. So there are criteria, from the journal. So what does the journal look for in a particular manuscript, for example? But usually, they look for similar things. So usually, when I review an article for any journal, first I will just focus on the research question first. Okay, what does the author, what does the researcher want to do, okay, about the study? And then I will move on, to the methodology, okay, to see, if the methods used were valid and reliable somehow. And then I will look at the result quickly, and then discussion. As I mentioned, right, the discussion part is so important, okay, as it will show the critical analysis and synthesis, of your study, the findings of your study. So then I will read the discussion quite thoroughly. Okay, so this will be like the first round, and then I would just start the whole paper once again. So now I can look at the details, right? Look more thoroughly, into the details, and then I will see if there are any discrepancies, if there are any mistakes, not just grammatical mistakes, but I mean there might be some mistakes in terms of the claim or the assumptions, so this can be reviewed through the writing. So that means when we review an article, right, we should be a critical reader. So maybe we have to select what to read first. We don't start from the beginning, right? We just look for the major parts, all right, and then see if so that when we do the first reading, so we will know almost immediately whether the article, right, should be published.
Thank you,
And
sir.
another, yeah, and another thing is that, you know, we need to look for the significance of the study as well. Sometimes you see that the research or the study conducted is not that important, you know, to our field. It's just like the repetition, right, of the methodology, right? Just maybe the researcher simply changed the participants, right, in another context. So that may not be effective enough.
Thank you, sir. Which
Yes.
is the best software for plagiarism checking?
The what checking? Sorry.
Plagiarism.
Sorry. What do you mean?
Plagiarism, to so that someone has stolen some material from other uh, Google form or
Oh, I mean,
so. Yeah,
uh, okay, plagiarism, right? Sorry.
plagiarism.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. So normally we use Turnitin, right? If we
Okay.
have if you have the program Turnitin. So usually, you know, for our journal, okay, our editor, right, we just, you know, use Turnitin, okay, to check. I myself, as a reviewer, not when I did, you know, the review for another journal, not for Learn, okay, I found something quite questionable. So it sometimes you can, so we just, you know, use the Google. Sometimes, you know, it's as
Yes.
easy as Google, right? So we just put something in the Google, and then I found a lot of plagiarism from there as well. So, you know, maybe the basic step is Google, and then the other step, you know, would be Turnitin. But usually I think all papers, you know, will go through the Turnitin for
Thank you,
plagiarism.
sir. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Supang, sir, for your wonderful, interactive, thought-provoking, and insightful session on systematic writing a research article in humanities and social sciences. Thank you very much, all the participants, for your love, words of appreciations, blessings, and academic support. We have been receiving overwhelming response from all over India and abroad. Almost half century nationally and internationally acclaimed academicians have delivered their talks on various aspects of language, literature, research methodology, higher education, and e-content development for last 25 days. In addition to that, it's not the end of lecture series. It's just a new beginning. With your unconditional academic support, quest and thirst for knowledge, we are inviting renowned nationally and internationally acclaimed academicians, probably from 21st of May again. See you on 21st May with Vice Chancellor of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, Ahmedabad, Professor Ami Upadhyay ma'am will join us on 21st May. So let's learn from each other and spread happiness. Stay at home and stay happy. Thank you very much, Dr. Supong, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good night. Yes.
Yes, good night. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.